1 month in being 50 years old. And it's not that I didn't know that No Filter wasn't coming back. It was always coming back. But I didn't feel it would be coming back or think it would be coming back under these circumstances. Part of me wanted to just disappear and be quiet. But then that's not who I am. I've always spoken up. And so here I am with No Filter Season 2. I refuse to let the ignorant and the territorial win. So this week will be a special series of No Filter. I am sick and saddened, just like all of you out there. But most importantly, I feel positive that we are going to get the change that we've been wanting for so many hundreds of years, and to be treated the way we should be treated, with equal rights, without injustice. I'm so honored to introduce our first guest, Opal Tometi, one of the co-founders of Black Lives Matter. And Opal's been quarantining with me for a week. I'm so happy and thrilled you could do this.
Thank you so much for having me. This has been an amazing experience and a great opportunity to get to know you more.
First, we should say how we met. How did we meet, Opal?
I feel like first, we know we have a lot of mutual friends.
We have a lot of mutual friends.
And obviously a mutual passion for Africa.
Absolutely.
And all things African. But also social media.
Social media.
The gram.
Yeah, we have to say it. We met over Instagram, and even though we were both in Ghana at the same time, this new part, Christmas, New Year, which was the 400th years of return.
Right, the year of return.
Which was a very important turnout, actually.
Yeah.
It was a lot of, I met a lot of people like Alphonso there. It was very, I want to just get to it because, I mean, let's start from the beginning. Yes. How did you and your co-founders, which your other co-founders are?
So Alicia Garza in Oakland, California, and Patrice Cullors, who's in Los Angeles. And I, when we started, was in Brooklyn, New York.
So did you go to school together? How did you come together?
So we actually know each other because we're all community organizers. We've all been committed to social justice for many, many years. I was doing some form of organizing and activism in high school. Same thing with Patrice, same thing with Alicia. But we were part of our own organizations in different parts of the country, and we're working on different issues. And the thing is, we know that these issues that we're even talking about today didn't happen overnight. We've been working on so many challenges over the years, and so we are part of a community that's been part of this tradition of community organizing, like so many other civil rights and human rights leaders that have come before us, and we found ourselves in that tradition. And so, because we were already community organizing, when we first heard that George Zimmerman was acquitted for the murder of Trayvon Martin, which, I mean, I hope people remember this.
Absolutely.
And I know you remember this, right? So Trayvon Martin, 17-year-old boy, Sanford, Florida, is going back to his own home, with his Skittles, Arizona iced tea, he has a hoodie on, and he's walking in his neighborhood, and he's stalked and he's killed by George Zimmerman. And first of all, that story in and of itself, even for it to get the attention that it needed to get George Zimmerman, first of all, arrested, because he wasn't immediately arrested. He wasn't.
How long? I can't even remember. How long was it?
I believe it was some weeks. It took some while to get the attention that it deserves, similar to things that are happening now. So this isn't brand new. This is something that we've been experiencing.
This is just same circumstance, different person.
Right. So George Zimmerman finally goes to trial, but it feels as though Trayvon Martin is on trial for his own murder. And it was deeply disturbing because these people essentially were trying to assassinate a teenage boy's character. It was, I mean, it made my stomach...
To deflect from what really happened.
So it was really hard to watch. And for me, I have 2 younger brothers, and my youngest brother at the time was 14. And so I could not imagine that he would see this trial play out on television, on news, night after night.
What future hope does it give?
Exactly. my godkids, all of the young people.
I have a brother, and I worry about that too. As a young black man out in the world, I mean, I said, okay, I can handle it, but I worry about him all the time.
Right. And it's young black boys, girls, women, aunties, you name it.
Tell me, how did the three of you come to start and get the name of your organization?
So this is actually a really...
Do you call it an organization?
So yeah, it's a network. We have a network as well as the platform that we created. And then of course, it also became synonymous with the larger movement, right? So the larger movement for racial justice is largely now known as Black Lives Matter, right? Okay. So it's kind of phenomenal. But it all began because the acquittal of George Zimmerman kind of set us off, right? We knew we needed to do something, myself, Alicia, Patrice, in our respective ways and for different reasons. But we were already working other kinds of jobs. I was doing immigrant rights work. Alicia was doing work with folks in the employment place and in the workplace, and then Patrice was working with folks in prisons. And so we were all doing something already, but we knew that this moment required us to step up in a completely different way. And we knew that the entire world was watching what was going on, and we just could not sit idly by while this was the end, essentially the end of the story, right? A lot of times you hear a verdict and you think, that's it, no, nothing else can be done. But to us, that was not an option.
That was the beginning.
That was just the beginning.
Right.
So Alicia is such a great writer, and she wrote this beautiful love note on Facebook, and it ended with something like, Black people, I love you, I love us, our lives matter. And then Patrice saw that on Facebook, and this is 7 years ago, right? So she, we do some hashtags then on Facebook, but not as often, but she decided, no, I'm gonna put a hashtag on it. So she puts hashtag, Black Lives Matter in the comments. And I see this, and I'm already doing some kind of Black organizing in my community, and I'm like, that's it. That it hit me in my spirit. It was so deep, but it was very
intuitive. Really is what it is.
It was very clear.
Yeah,
it was
very clear.
Very, very clear. And I have a background in communications, right? My master's in communications. I saw it, it spoke to me. I reached out and called Alicia and then said, hey, I'd love to partner with you on whatever this is. I'm not sure what we're even talking about doing, but let's do something really special. We know that people need to be organizing. We know that they need to be advocating for themselves and ensuring that this no longer happens in our communities. So I said, mind if I buy blacklivesmatter.com and Facebook page and Twitter? And she's like, let's do it. Let's roll this thing out. Let's make sure that more people hear this message. Yeah. And let's
how old are you now?
So I'm 35. No.
How old is Black Lives Matter?
Oh, so
you're a baby. I told you the other time.
Actually,
15 years older than you.
Can we edit that part out? Because I'm like,
I'm 15 years older. But tell me, how old is Black Lives Matter?
Okay, so Black Lives Matter is about to celebrate our 8th anniversary.
What day is it?
July 13th.
Oh,
yeah, so right around the corner.
Yeah.
Right around the corner. Yeah. So we've been going for a while, right? And what's beautiful is now people are hearing about it again. It's like this second wave,
tell
if
me,
you will.
How do you feel with all, how do you feel with all that's happened in this past, Ahmaud was what, March or in February? So from the last 2.5 months, actually let's go from Brianna.
Yeah.
So early February, right?
Yeah.
So February, March, April, May, June. Without really the camera, we wouldn't have known some of them.
Some of them we wouldn't have known. Yeah. Video, technology, people being courageous enough to come forward and say, hey, I witnessed this thing happen, and here's the proof. Yeah. People are really stepping up and really standing for something right now. And it takes a lot of courage, but it's also the right thing to do. I wish it didn't take footage in some of these cases.
Yeah.
I wish that we didn't have to go through these lengths. And, I'll be quite honest, in the case of Breonna Taylor, those officers didn't even bother to complete
the form.
It's unconscionable.
You said it was a false report.
Yeah, well, it was a police report, but they're supposed to complete it with details. And what you'll see is that there are many blank pages, many blank sections, as if nothing happened.
So where are these police now?
They have yet to be charged.
And they've not been arrested at all?
Not at all. They're
So they're what?
Kentucky.
They're living in their homes
They're living
with their families, walking the earth, just freely.
no real consequence, nothing of substance. This is a woman who was an EMT worker, right?
And
An
from what
essential worker.
she seemed very loved by her co-workers. And her mother looks really young, and just seeing her mother, just even with at George Floyd's funeral, and her mother put out a video that I saw a few weeks ago. I mean, it really must hurt to know that your child's life's been taken away, and there's no justice. It's incredible.
Not even a modicum of justice, like a sincere acknowledgement. No, apology, nothing. And nothing can really replace one's child, right?
Never.
So that's I think what is so significant about Black Lives Matter. We essentially said we're going to move away from just talking. When we want to talk about the individuals, right? We need to share, but we need to make sure that our system changes because
it's continuous. So right now we're fixed on police brutality, but for me, what Black Lives Matter stand for is there's so much. The reach is from here to the continent of Africa. It's so much because it matters in the job that you get. That you go for a job and you have the qualifications and you don't get it. Why? Because of the color of your skin. For me, this is I never was someone that could handle that.
Right.
I was not accepting it.
I know. Well, you were such a good.
It's like I'm not having it. I'm sorry. I feel that I could do that work.
Right.
Then I deserve to have the chance like everybody else.
Oh, absolutely.
So that's why right now we're on this topic with the police, but it's more than that.
Absolutely more than that. And I think that's what I'm grateful that in this time, I believe people are beginning to understand that, right? So we see that people are not only taking to the street around police brutality, but they're saying, wait a minute, we need to change corporate culture. Wait a minute, we need to change fashion. Wait a minute, we need to, it's about all of these industries. It's about all our
We need to have our proper placement and seat at the table of the boards. And I've been saying that for a long time. It's not just when things come up, oh my God, let's scramble, let's get this person, that person, that person up. No, it shouldn't be that way. And part of me, I work with Beth Ann in the Diversity Coalition, and Beth Ann's like a second mother to me. Beth Ann Hardison we're speaking about. But we did that to protect our girls in the industry of fashion. So, but why is it now that the jobs that do come up, that the description is you're going to be a diversity role? Why is that? Because I also feel like they're overqualified for that too.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right, no. I completely understand what you mean. And it's not about that, right? It's not just diversity for diversity's sake, but it's reflect the spectrum and the breadth of the society.
But then you also feel like if I don't take that diversity job, whatever title it is, diversity, that I'm not doing something for my people. So it's a catch-22 in a way.
Yeah, I think a lot of people are trying to navigate spaces and positions like that. And what's important is if you can, and if you feel that's your role, show up, but help to open the door for others.
Exactly
right?
what it's about. You have to open the door.
And it's
for
not
others.
always easy, but finding your allies even within that space, because oftentimes there are allies who are like, we really ride for Naomi, we really ride for this person, and you find them and you ask them to come alongside you as you make the space bigger for others. And you're a great testament to that. You're
so
the queen.
What is the strategy for now that you have for Black Lives Matters and what you're all doing individually, but still under the unit of Black Lives Matter? What is the thing we can continue doing? Is it the protests?
So
what should we be doing?
Quite honestly, it's everything. I feel like if we knew the exact solution, we would have done that years ago. We wouldn't have even probably needed to create Black Lives Matter. But the truth is, we don't have all of the solutions in place, but we do have really clear ideas.
What
we
do
do
you
have
want?
research.
What do you feel? What would you like to see happen?
So what we know we need right now is to resource and invest in Black communities. That is clear as day.
Education.
All of our systems, right? It's education, it's the healthcare system. There's so many ways in which Black communities have systematically for decades been disinvested, right? Public safety net was cut. We had laws that were essentially criminalizing people who were low income, so poor people, and making it more and more difficult for them to even join the formal economy. So there are a lot of challenges that we've had stacked up against us for
a long
quite some
time.
Yeah.
So, okay, there's two things I'm gonna ask you.
Yes.
So, we're in a pandemic.
Yeah.
Not every child can do homeschooling, I've come to understand, because not every child or every family have a computer.
Yeah.
So those that don't have any way of having a computer, a simple computer, have not had any schooling for how many months?
It's a real problem. There are a number of challenges between schooling, between food, ensuring people are well taken care of, people accessing hospitals if they do end up feeling sick. There are a number of challenges having to wait, or who aren't being believed because of the color of their skin. There's a lot of discrimination we already know about that happens within our healthcare system, where Black people are oftentimes not believed. They're not given the same levels of medication or attention that they deserve. It's been happening, and so
but at least half of the healthcare workers are race. They're Black.
Yeah, a lot of healthcare workers. My mom is a nurse, right? I know
my grandmothers were nurses.
Yeah, we know so many people of color who are essential workers, and that also is part of the challenge. I'm not sure if you're aware of this, but in the U.S., we are acutely impacted by COVID-19. There are about 25,000 Black people who've died from COVID-19.
And that's the other thing I was going to say, because of the low income housing, the structure of apartments, air conditioning. There's so many things that they told us at the beginning. We have lost, it seemed to hit, because in the beginning we wasn't sure if it could hit our race. I heard so many things.
There were all sorts of rumors, but we know it wasn't true, but yes, it was being perpetrated.
Fact is, it did.
Yeah. Oh, it's hit in a major way.
And still is?
Yes, and still is. And so we have to stay vigilant. And I think what COVID-19 was showing us is that anti-Black racism is going on no matter what.
But this is why it was great that Michelle Obama had the teaching for being healthy, of obesity, how to take care of yourself if you have hypertension, high blood pressure, heart disease, and keep, trying not to be obese.
Yes.
This is why this program was so great,
so important.
Which I heard was switched.
Well,
yes. So, all these things is education.
Yeah, a lot of it is education, but then there's a lot that's structural.
Right?
We have to acknowledge that we have systems that are quite literally set up to fail Black people, set up to hurt Black people, and I think that's what we're trying. We're trying to draw attention to all of this, because we're saying enough is enough. We can't fight case by case.
No,
it's a losing battle.
So this is what
look at the data. It's clearly a losing battle. Too many reports have come out.
So what do you think? Do you think it's possible as a race that we could be apologized to, where it's a law, where it so that it never happens again? Is it possible that we, like all other races out there in the world, like the Jewish, can we get the same apology? Can we get the same respect? I'm not even speaking about compensation, because the compensation for what they have done is unimaginable.
Yeah.
What I couldn't even think of what that could be. But is it possible that we could be apologized to, that there could be a law that protects us, that this doesn't happen anymore?
Honestly, I think that is the bare minimum. That should happen. Absolutely. We deserve an apology. We deserve compensation. We deserve our communities to be specifically invested in, right? So to ensure that we actually are on equitable playing field. Right now, we're not. We're starting at such a disadvantage. So, there are just so many times where people are talking about, this person should be here, or they if they just did X, Y, Z, and it's like, no, for generations, their families have been living either if it's in squalor, or they've had all sorts of, bricks thrown at their path or at their back during their lifetime. And so we do need real solutions. We need systemic solutions, and we need real investment in our communities. There's been a lot of conversation around what we do around policing, and we're saying, no, their budgets are over bloated. It's bananas right now. They have all the military grade equipment. We see them and what they're doing with protesters and beyond, and it's unconscionable that they would meet people who are essentially trying to say,
so you believe in strongly about defunding the police and putting the funds elsewhere?
Yes, absolutely. I absolutely believe that. We know where the resources can come from. We know that they exist. And the fact that healthcare workers don't have PPE and the police have all sorts
I couldn't believe that,
just,
because it's always that the healthcare workers, like, travel a lot. We travel a lot. Yes. But it's like, when you it's always that the bits of news I get is the people that are, they cut, always the cuts are to the healthcare workers, the nurses, the teachers.
To the teachers, the schools, they shut down so many schools in Chicago.
So it's always, for me, the education is a must.
Yes,
it's
an
absolute must.
It's a human right. Are you kidding me? It's a fundamental human right. Certain things just, you don't mess with them. You invest.
So what can you tell us, Opal? So are we now to continue protesting?
I think in some cases we will need to continue protesting. There's nothing quite like being in the street. Let's be honest.
So do you feel that America's going to become like France? Because people say, oh my God, in France there's a protest. There is, but do you feel like that's what America's going to become like now?
Well, it could, and I don't think it's a problem. I think if we think that's the only thing that's
peaceful.
Well, it's peaceful. What's been happening to us has been violence. So, but I get what you mean. We, Black Lives Matter as a movement, we're trying to stop a war on Black lives, essentially.
You're not here to promote violence. I want to get that clear. You've never been.
We've never done that. Never.
But I saw, and we've all seen these videos of the people that would come. And it's not us.
Well, there are a lot of people detracting.
Detracting, yes. So there will be protests, and obviously we want change. I'm not American, I can't vote, but I can definitely use my voice to bring awareness.
Please.
Change in the system of who's running your country.
And we have all sorts of policies that need to change in this country. So there are people who are part of our larger coalitions, like in the Movement for Black Lives, or partners at the NAACP and different organizations across the country, who are looking at every specific level that they can make change. And that's been really, really powerful and important to see, because there are different players in all of this. There are people who sit on the Board of Education, there are city councils, there's a mayor's council, there are all.
But do they have a voice?
Some of them do, and what? And they have a voice, and they have a responsibility in this time to use
that voice.
Absolutely.
Exactly, I agree with you.
That to me is fundamental. We need to make sure that this democracy works for everybody,
right?
And respects everybody, and people have the right to.
Can I read you something? Yeah. Because I read a story that I'm not sure exactly if it was the head of the NAACP, but I'll just say the NAACP organization. They said that they needed to rethink their own strategy because of Black Lives Matter has had such a bigger impact than they could have ever had. And they've been around since 1909 or something.
Yeah. Yes. So I know their president, know and love Derek. He's phenomenal, and I consider him a mentor, and he's been such a supporter.
But how does that make you feel?
Well, you know what it makes me feel is like, well, of course. And that's fine. I think everybody has to revisit their strategy. I mean, even ourselves, even myself.
I agree. In my business,
in my business, and my personal life, it's all about growth.
Yes.
It's all about evolution. It's all about taking stock of your strategies and whether or not you're being effective. And ultimately, it's not that we want one or two people to be right and that's all, and you're right and you get enough.
No,
we want to be effective.
Yeah.
We want things to change. And so if you realize that something isn't working, you change tactics.
Absolutely.
And that's essentially what Black Lives Matter did. We're like, okay, this thing continues to happen time and time again. Guess what? We're gonna get more people involved by using social media. We're gonna use these tools to mobilize more people, to activate them, to make sure that they know what's going on. And we're taking action online, but we know it's about our lives offline. It's about real people gathering together, being in community with each other, and enacting change at the local level, national level, and hopefully international as well. So it's a really powerful time, but I will say that from that.
What do you tell our Generation Z who's out there, who's really, it warms my heart to see that it's all nationalities, all races, that really this one they all feel.
Yeah.
And what do you tell them now? What's your word of wisdom that you want to leave us with?
My word of wisdom for them. First of all, I am in awe of everybody who's in action right now. People who are in motion and showing up in their different ways, and different people have different things to contribute. So first, I'd say, well done.
Yeah,
welcome,
really bravo.
And well done. Great work. Brave, courageous souls, and that's what this time requires. People of courage, people of conscience, who are connected deeply to their own sense of humanity and one another, and the possibility that we have. And I say, keep going. Yeah. We have been doing this. I have been involved in some kind of activism for 20 years.
This is your life's work, Opal. This is your life's work.
This is my purpose on this planet, and I'm grateful.
God bless you.
I'm grateful to be.
I'm so honored and happy that you could be here today, that we could do this and be with us. Thank God. We can have a hug because we've been in quarantine.
Yes.
So we can have a hug.
We can do this.
I'm really honored to have you, and God bless you and what you're doing. And if there's anything I can do, I cannot vote, but I'll do everything I can to help push the right to raise my awareness, whatever I can do. And also just the last note about Africa.
Oh,
I know how much you love Africa, and it's in your heritage.
Right. Right.
Just tell us about your heritage.
Yeah, so I am Nigerian American, but my great grandpa was actually from Togo, and then my grandpa migrated to Cameroon, and he was born in Cameroon, and then he migrated, and my dad was born in Nigeria. My parents met, and now they're here.
I love the continent. So how is this, to just because how was the movement and the protests in Africa?
Oh my gosh. You know what? It's phenomenal, because people are actually engaging in protests in solidarity with us here in the US, but they're also uplifting the issues that are going on there.
For their own issues, because they're still in their own struggles.
Yeah, people have struggles everywhere. This is not this is not something that's unique, but with the power of technology, they're seeing what's happening and they're saying, this isn't right. Mm-hmm. We're so deeply saddened that this could go on, and so we want to show the people in the U.S., Black people in the U.S., that we see them, we're with them, and we're saying enough is enough as well. So that's been powerful. But we also have seen the African leaders step up. I don't know if you've heard this, but all 54 countries essentially came together, put out a statement condemning, the violence that Black people are faced with in this country, but also calling on the UN Human Rights Council to hold a special session.
Well, and when would that be? In September, Junior?
Well, there will be some more in the future, so they're doing an ongoing, but they already held it. So the day before Juneteenth, they held the special session.
The 17th?
Yeah.
That's fantastic. That was in Geneva?
That was in Geneva.
Well, actually, I did know about this. I think this is amazing, but I hope now they really stick to it.
Right. So what was amazing was that was historic.
That is historic for all 54 countries?
For all of them to come together.
Big.
Yes, it was amazing.
To put everything aside and come together.
And say, enough is enough. We don't want to see our children in the diaspora treated like this. This is enough. So I was deeply moved, because we've never seen anything like it. And that's the connection. That's the connection we have already. It's inherent. It's our birthright. But it was amazing to see that these African leaders said the same.
I think also I mean, for me, I'm so proud to hear that, and thank you for enlightening us all about it. I think that also what people don't realize is in Africa, we know this, we have coronavirus right now, but think about what they've had. They've had so many diseases come year after year after year.
Yeah.
So they don't still have a cure for malaria. And they've got dengue. Then Ebola's come back. I mean, on top of this, but there's this list of, and they're just resilient.
Oh yeah.
And I felt that they dealt with this pandemic in such a positive and forthright way.
Yeah.
And they locked down immediately.
Yes. It's been, we hear those, we know that those diseases are there. There's still these challenges, but it's amazing to see that our folks are very resilient and they're coming up with solutions despite whether or not anybody or any government or company is going to do anything.
When you hit Ghana, what do? Machine.
Oh yeah. And that's been going on.
And that's been going on, exactly.
It just happened.
It's like, now they're going to do this here. I'm like thinking, that's not new to me.
You're late. It's not new. So I think there are so many great things that are happening, and it's been amazing to see that there are entrepreneurs in the healthcare space who are also engaging and creating new tools and PPE and rapid deployment.
It's seeing kids build like water tanks. I'm like, God bless.
Brilliant.
The creativity.
Yeah, I think
that's come out from the continent and around the world.
Yeah, but out of
But it blesses my heart because we are so much more privileged. And have so much at our fingertips than our brothers and sisters do on the continent. And I don't think people know that who hasn't been there, Yeah, sometimes folks don't really know, but people are so proud and dignified. Very dignified, very elegant.
Oh my gosh.
And very intelligent.
Oh yeah, brilliant. So
even the taxi driver has a degree.
Yeah.
Thank you, Opal.
Thank you. Oh,
thank you so much.
Appreciate you and your spirit and all that you do and all that you embody. Thank you.
Thank you. It's a huge honor to have my next guest. My next guest is a man that has helped pave the way for all of us. Someone that we've run to when there's been many injustice, when we felt attacked. The man that I'm speaking of is the Reverend Al Sharpton. Welcome, Reverend Al, to No Filter.
Well, thank you. We're very honored to have been asked to share time with you. And I want people to know, before we get into it, that besides being a real global trendsetter and one who will smash barriers in the fashion world, that you are at heart an activist, and so much so that Nelson Mandela saw you as his daughter, and that you are a freedom fighter. They should not let the glamour get in the way of that real freedom fighter inside of Naomi Campbell. So I'm very honored that you would ask me to have this conversation with you.
Oh, thank you so much, and thank you for always being there for me in my life. The backbone of the strength. Whenever I call you, you pick up that phone, and you don't know what that means to me. Thank you.
Well, thank you.
So, Reverend Al, where do we start? Because this is a time of divide. And, as I said, you've paved the way for us all. How is there a solution for us going forward from where we stand today?
I think that we have to be focused on the energy that's out there is great. We must keep the protest going. We have a national protest we're going to do in August. But we need to also focus on the benchmarks of what it is we want to achieve. We must change the laws now. The problem is that the law is too, in my opinion, too loose for police when they are accused of something wrong. And you and I don't think all police are bad, not even most, but those that are bad must be held accountable. The law at this time says that if a policeman thinks his life is in danger, he has the right to use deadly force. The law that we are proposing, that the Congressional Black Caucus and others are pushing now in the House of Representatives, says you must be able to prove, officer, you had no other option but to use deadly force. That raises the bar to where they can't continue to get away with things. I think they also need to have a residency requirement where they have to live in the cities that they police. You kind of look at people different if the kid you see at the supermarket goes to school with your kid, or the guy that you see at the gas station, he's a coach of the football team that your son may play on. Many of these officers are not acclimated in the cities and communities that they work. That's right. And we need to also have laws where we help those with mental health. They don't need to be locked up. They need to be lifted up. They need to be dealt with.
Correct.
The homeless, So I think this is a time for societal change to redefine what law enforcement is, where we're not there just to contain people or brutalize people or beat them into submission, but we're there to really protect them. And there's order where the police have to follow laws just like everybody else. Doesn't weaken police, it strengthens them because it gives us a bond in the community. And I think we're at that time. I was taught growing up in the church that good can come out of evil. I think in this bad time of a pandemic where everybody was locked down, that is what gave birth to what we're seeing. Because everybody was locked down, sheltered in, couldn't go out, and there was no sports. We couldn't watch football, couldn't watch basketball, no baseball. All sports was down. Nothing. So we're looking at the two. First, we see a man jogging in Brunswick, Aubrey, killed. We look at that. A week and a half later, we see a young lady in Houston in her bed with her boyfriend sleep, and the police burst in with no knock laws and kills her. Thirdly, we see this man laying in the street handcuffed with a knee on his neck. It was too much. One right after another.
Reverend Al, that's just the ones we know of.
That's the one that. So I think it was all of that, and then having a head of state like Trump that showed no compassion, no concern, wouldn't even call their name. I think that's why people said, no, it's time for change. And I think that out of this atmosphere, change can come.
Did you think that this was coming to a head anyway? I mean, George Floyd is definitely like a messiah for us. Breonna Taylor, Rashad. But did you feel, because I felt since last year that there was a racial divide that was going to happen. I felt this coming. I didn't know it was going to be in this way, but I felt just the tension. And it does come from the top up.
I think the tone that was set at the top made it inevitable that at some point something was going to break. And when you have a flammable surface, any spark will light the fire. And I think that Floyd was the spark, but the surface was already flammable. It was already there.
Can I ask you something? So, as well as the police brutality, which we've had and known that's been happening for years and decades, and centuries, do you not feel that the apology is beyond, it's more than just the police brutality? I think it needs to go back from the beginning, like where you started from. How did you get involved in civil rights? Because it needs to be corrected from the beginning. We need an apology as a race.
We need an apology as a race and a recognition of what was done to us as a race. As I said in my eulogy at the first funeral, we don't even recognize the fact that the story I told was several years ago, a newspaper in New York did research and found out my great-grandfather was a slave in South Carolina. I never knew who he was. I knew my grandfather was from Florida, and I had met him. My father brought me down there before my father left. But I never knew we had relatives in South Carolina. The way they found out he was a slave in South Carolina, is that he was owned by the family that was part of Strom Thurmond's heritage. And when Alexander Sharpton died, his widow leased my great grandfather to Florida to do plantation work. That's how my grandfather and father ended up in Florida. So I went down to this town, Ellenville, South Carolina, where my great grandfather was a slave. And the cemetery on the side of the white church, First Baptist Church, this is just 7-8 years ago. Yeah. Half the cemetery was Thurman's and Sharpton's. And the guide told me, now these are not your Sharptons. These are the ones that owned your Sharpton. And it hit me the first time in my life, Naomi, that when I write my name, I'm writing the name of who owned us. It is not my name. We don't even know our real name. They took our identity from us, sold us like we were nothing. And we had to fight to even be respected as citizens. And that's why I said in my message that day that you've had your knee on our neck. That's why George Floyd meant so much to us, because all of us could have been so much more, but they never took their knee off our neck. So with all of the barriers you broke, you still had to keep proving yourself. There was a knee on your neck. Well, Naomi did it this time, but can you do it again? Oh, well, what about this? Oh, what? And Barack Obama became the president of the United States. And they said, but let me see your birth certificate. They never took their knee off our neck. And that's why it got to be deeper than police brutality.
I mean, it's funny because I've often thought that my last name, Campbell, is Scottish. You know, I know that I'm not Scottish in any way. So where does it come from? Obviously, it comes from an owner that's given us this name Campbell, and generation after generation after generation. And that's how I have Campbell, because that's where this name comes from. So we don't know exactly our true names of where we're, you know, of where we're from, our heritage. When you've been at many forefronts, and you were in the cultural movement with Malcolm X, Martin Luther King, Jesse Jackson. What's the difference from then and how it feels now to be standing here today doing what you're doing?
The difference is that more people are aware. Because of social media and the internet, people can see and be able in their own way judge what is happening, where before we had to do it with flyers and you just didn't have the graphics that you had. But the cause is the same. And the determination is the same. You have the younger ones that say, I want to do it my way, and the older ones. It's all of the conflicts are the same. Martin Luther King used to say it's creative tension. And all of that is good, as long as people are moving forward. We may have different styles, we may have different approaches, but as long as we're moving forward. South Africa, where you have been involved, you are a global activist. You had the PAC and the ANC, you had the Young Turks and the ANC. There's nothing new about that. What we must do, though, is never, ever accept being less than what we should have.
Absolutely. And I feel that in many cases with Madiba, President Nelson Mandela, I say to myself, of course we didn't like him being locked away for 27 years. Then I say to myself, but what if he was out? Maybe we wouldn't have had him this long, have had him the length we had him, you know?
That's right. Well, that's where we must always look for the good that comes out of the struggle. Because, when I remember I was a part of the Free Mandela movement in the United States, and then when we heard that he was going to be freed, the thing that was more striking to me, I preach about that a lot, is we thought after 27 years he'd walk out that jail humped over a broken man. He went 27 years in jail, 16 years, couldn't even touch his wife's hand. He walked out ramrod straight with the bearing of a king and went from prisoner to president. That story gives pride to everybody in the world.
So can you tell us, Al, before I know you have a heart out, can you tell us, do you feel that we can finally get the apology that we deserve? Do you feel that it can now be a law to protect us like you have for the Jewish community? Do you feel that we can have it too?
I think that we must have it, and we can't stop until we get it. And I think we will get it, and I think we will get it based on our determination because we were born with the right of everybody else in the world. Everybody in the world got their apology. You cannot put up a Nazi statue in Germany. Why do you have Confederate statues in the United States?
Correct.
You
Yes.
cannot do to others what you won't do with us. So I'm not asking for anything special for us. I'm saying do for us what you've done for everybody else. We've
Correct.
earned it, and we are born with the same birthright of everybody else.
Al, I want to thank you. I have another question I'd like to put to you just quickly. What would you tell the young people of the day who are going out there, who are marching? Obviously, we want to keep it peaceful and non-violent. It's a long
I
road.
would
It's not
tell
going to
them.
happen overnight. We know that. But
I
it can
would tell
happen.
them that the struggle is long, but it's just, and don't be sprinter activists, be marathon activists. Go for the long run. Keep going, keep going. Every fight we're in, including the one I'm in now for Floyd, you got to be set that it may take a year. We don't know when it'll go to trial. We don't know if the law can be changed now or a year from now. But you keep your eye on the goal, not on how long the struggle is. You don't stop till you win. It's not if you win, you must win.
We must win. Reverend Al Sharpton, thank you so much for your time, and I know how busy you are. I thank you so much for being able to come on.
Thank you. You mean
Thank
so
you.
much.
I love you so much, and thank you.
God bless you. Love you.
Love you too.
All right.
My next guest is a groundbreaking civil rights activist and civil rights leader and LGBTQ activist. He is the first ever head of the Human Rights Campaign. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Alphonso David. Alphonso!
Naomi!
How are you? Thank you so much for your time and to being able to be on No Filter. Thank you.
You're welcome. It's so great to see you.
How are you doing?
I'm doing okay. Transitioning into COVID now, trying to transition out of COVID with all of the challenges that presents for me, for my team, for society. And then all of the racial unrest, legitimate racial unrest that we're seeing. It's really been fascinating, disconcerting, humbling, and invigorating to see us get to this point. I'm so saddened that it took so long for us to get here, but we are here and we have to seize this moment to affect real change.
I feel like everyone feels that. Well, first of all, I'm so happy to see you. And I'll just give a little insight to Alphonso and I met in Ghana. And Alphonso, in a certain way, you were kind of born in, your life, you were, explain to us your life from the beginning. You were born in America, raised in Africa.
Yes. So my parents came to the United States for school. They were both born and raised in Liberia. And they came to the United States for school. They had me. I was a year old and they went back to Liberia. And my father ran for political office. He became the mayor of Monrovia, which is the capital city of Liberia. My uncle ran for office as well. He became the president of Liberia. And we lived...
Liberia, just so everyone knows, is the only colony that the United States has in Africa, right?
Yeah, it was founded by free slaves. So Liberia was founded by freed slaves. The capital city, Monrovia, is named after President James Monroe. And we lived there for 9-10 years safely. And then there was a military coup. My uncle, president of Liberia, was assassinated. My father, the mayor of Monrovia, was incarcerated. And we lived under house arrest for several years. And then he was released.
What has that been like?
It is unimaginable to describe it to anyone who hasn't gone through a civil war. I've seen heads blown off. I've seen women attacked. We had to run away from our house because there were gunmen at the door shooting at the front door, and we had to jump out of a bathroom window to escape. That is the only reason I'm alive. That is the only reason my family was able to escape, is because of the universe and God. We wouldn't have had the option. So many other people died. My uncle died. Many members of my family died. It's really unimaginable to think about that experience today.
Now, may I ask you, I'm so sorry for what you've gone through, but yeah, I know that's given you so much strength and has made you, probably driven you to be who you are today. I mean, we're so proud to have you be our first Black man in the position of the Human Rights Campaign. I mean, it's 2020. I just, it's like, I mean, just to lead me up to how you wanted this position, what you were doing before to get to this position.
It took me, I've been doing civil rights work for 20 years. I've been a civil rights lawyer and an advocate for 20 years. And after law school, I worked for a federal judge. And after that, I worked in a law firm. I then ran a company. And then there was, for me, a seminal moment where I decided to really invest my time, my energy, my resources into civil rights work. I always knew I would do this work, but it's one thing to sort of imagine doing it. There's another to really devote your life to doing it. And that's what I did. I joined Lambda Legal. I became a lawyer there. I litigated the civil rights marriage case for LGBTQ people in New York. We won at the trial court. We lost at the high court. I then joined government, and I joined the Attorney General's office, and then I became the governor's chief counsel in the governor's office. And I had the privilege of working with an incredible team, Catherine Granger, Mylan Dinerstein, and we wrote the marriage equality law in New York, allowing same-sex couples to marry in New York. And serving as the governor's counsel, I received a phone call for this position. And I thought long and hard about the implications of this role. And I decided to do it because we are on a precipice of really affecting transformative change in this country. And I've devoted my life to this work. And the Human Rights Campaign is the largest LGBTQ civil rights organization in the world. And I want to not only affect, the lives of LGBTQ people here in the United States, but globally. There are people, as you know all too well, Naomi, that live in certain parts of Africa and Asia and South America and other places where they're killed for simply being LGBTQ.
Absolutely.
And we also have that here in the United States, unfortunately.
I mean, throughout all the injustice that's happened in the last 4 months, we've also had we had a trans murder, I believe, like 10 days ago.
Yes, we've had several.
Talk to us about that.
Sure. What many people don't know is that members of the trans community, and specifically people of color and Black transgender women, are being targeted in this country. So since 2013, since we've been tracking the killings of transgender people, we have at least 177 people who have been killed. Last year alone, we have at least 27 people who were killed. Transgender people, largely Black transgender women. And this year, we're up to at least 16 transgender people have been killed in this country. And that is a crisis. That is a crisis that requires all of us to engage to make sure we stop the plight of violence that is facing the transgender community.
I want to ask you, a lot of people don't know about the Stonewall riots that were started by a Black trans woman by the name of Marsha P. Johnson.
Yes,
Give us a little
yes.
insight about that.
So the LGBTQ civil rights movement started in protest. Many people may not know that, but it started in protest. Compton's Cafeteria, the Black Cat, both in California, and Stonewall in New York City. And the other significant fact that many people don't know is that the LGBTQ modern civil rights movement, all of the protests that I just referenced, were started by transgender people of color. Marsha P. Johnson, Sylvia Rivera, and others who fought back against police brutality. They fought back against harassment. And they said, you're not going to denigrate me. I'm not going to accept living as a second-class citizen. I will fight back for my dignity. And as a result, we have the modern LGBTQ civil rights movement in this country. Those leaders deserve the credit that they don't often get, because that's why we're here today.
But that's why it's so wonderful what you do and what I got to attend this January. It was such an amazing evening to be at your human rights campaign dinner and awards. And it was such an honor for you to ask me. Just the energy in the room was just incredible.
Naomi, I have to say thank you, because you have been a champion.
Thank you.
You have been a champion. I mean, many people may not know all of the work that you've done across the globe to advance human rights for all people, not just simply LGBTQ people. You've been engaged in fighting back against HIV/AIDS. You've been engaged in all of the hurricanes and the tsunamis that we've seen. You have a fashion show every single year to sort of raise money for hurricane relief victims. That is critically important. You're using your platform for change. And I couldn't thank you enough for doing what you do.
Thank you. But I want to ask you, so a lot of the transgender murders and injustices, has it been from police brutality?
We don't have enough information to draw that conclusion. We do know of a recent killing that involved police, actually a few, but I can't draw the conclusion that all 177 that we've tracked since 2013 involve law enforcement. What I can say is that we have sufficient evidence to show that the trans community has been targeted by law enforcement and harassed by law enforcement historically, and that unfortunately continues in many parts of this country. One of the pieces of legislation that we are supporting is legislation in New York that would decriminalize people who are effectively it's called walking while trans. And police officers target trans women simply because of who they are in some instances, and we want to stop that practice. So there is a practice around the country of targeting transgender people, and unfortunately, most of them are people of color, and so they're hit twice. You know, you're a person of color and you face systemic racism in this country, and then you're a transgender person, you face oppression. And we see that with law enforcement, and we see that in all sectors in this country.
What is the work that we need to do more in educating ourselves, in the ignorance side of things? I mean, where do we go now? I mean, with what's happening in the world today, what's your thought of change? Things that we need to continue to do, or things that we need to do more of?
Naomi, for me, the most fundamental thing that we can do in our lives is see beyond ourselves. And if we adopt that philosophy of seeing beyond ourselves, things will change. How can people in whatever industry they work in force themselves to see themselves in people who don't look like them, people who don't act like them, people who maybe come from different countries and different regions? If we are able to adopt that fundamental philosophy of seeing beyond ourselves, we can achieve equality and liberation for marginalized communities. And what we are going through right now, the plight of Black people in this country, and in fact around the globe, in this country for more than 400 years, Black people have been living under systemic oppression, systems that have been created to continue to oppress Black people. So what I would ask anyone who is looking to see how they can get involved is see beyond yourselves. See how you can support policies that don't directly affect you, policies that are benefiting other people. How can you affect change? You can affect change by contacting your legislator, contacting Congress, and supporting pieces of legislation that affect change.
And with all that's happening with also the last 3 months in terms of, I spoke to Opal Tometi, that's friends with you from Black Lives Matters, with Reverend Al Sharpton. I mean, the one thing we all agree on is that we are going to get change. And this time we're going to get it.
Yes, we are going to get change. We have to. The current system does not work. We have to create new systems for change, and we are going to get that change. And what I am encouraged about is that when you see the protests all over the country, most of the faces, or many of the faces that you're seeing, are not people of color.
Yes.
They're not people of color.
It's fantastic.
I think that's fantastic. That is a signal that we are hopefully at a moment where we can affect real, positive, transformative change.
I mean, I tell you, looking at Australia, I worked in Australia, and I had to fight when I was in Australia to have Aboriginal models be part of the show that I was producing. I mean, I had to really fight. And to see the turnout, I was just like, because I'm like, every race and Italians and, Spanish, and everyone's, Australia's like a melting pot. So for me, but yet this is their actual land and their birthright. And I was just like, there's no way I was coming to this country and not having the people that really, this is their land, be part of what I'm doing. And I was a woman of color.
Yes.
I am a woman of color. So I was like, I'm not doing it without them. This is gonna, that you get them or you don't have me. That was it. But
and that's the difference. And that's the difference, Naomi, between being an ally and being an advocate. You were an advocate for change, because although it's really great to have allies, we need people to take action and affect change.
Action is what it's about, because we can all speak. It's like I'm seeing. I've always been with Beth Ann. She calls me her Buffalo Soldier, and I used to. She was my soundboard that I could go to and say, "This is happening. This is happening." What I don't think it's right. At 18 years old, and I'm such a blessing to have her in my life. But I feel, I didn't have her to explain to me, because when I first understood it, I was like, "What is this? This is real." But I've never had fear. You know what I mean? It's like, I'm going to say how I feel. People can interpret it how they want to interpret, and you know what I mean.
Oh, yeah, I know. And we need that. We need that sense of commitment, dedication, tenacity, in order to not only affect change, but have that change be sustainable. We are at the cusp of change, but I want to make sure that we're pushing for change that is long-term. We're pushing for change that is sustainable, because we cannot go backwards, and we will not go backwards, but we have to create a platform for sustainable change moving forward.
So the one thing I asked my guests today, and I have to ask you before we let you go, and thank you for your valuable time, is, do you feel that we're owed an apology? Do you think we can get the apology? Will we get the apology?
Are we owed an apology? Yes. Will we get an apology? It depends from whom. The person that is sitting in the White House pretending to be the president of the United States, I'm not sure we will get an apology. And even if we do, I'm not sure it's legitimate.
We're not getting it from him. And we don't, we're talking about
we don't have to
back to the beginning.
I do think that we deserve an apology. Let's look at it at its core. People were taken from their homes, enslaved, murdered, in order to advance a system of oppression. There's no other way to sugarcoat it. People deserve an apology for having their lives and their families' lives stolen. And I don't think anyone should be afraid of recognizing that as a reality.
Well, you look at other cultures and they've been able to get that apology and a compensation.
Yes.
I do believe that we should get the same. It's a long road, but I don't think it's impossible.
It is not impossible. We're very smart, we're very strategic, and I think we can come up with a framework that does make sense, so that people can reinvest in this country and feel that the Constitution, when it says life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, actually encompasses them as well.
Inequality.
And equality.
Inequality. Oh my God, Alphonso, thank you so much for your time. I'm so grateful to you that you could be here with me today. And I'm happy I'm your friend in my life. It was meant to be that I met you that night at President Nana Addo's house in Ghana.
We will see each other very soon, I'm sure.
We will. And thank you for all that you do. God bless you, and see you very soon.
Thank you. Thank you, Naomi. Take care.
It was an honor to have such amazing guests today on No Filter Season 2. I look forward to hearing from you. If you have any questions for my guests or myself, please leave them in the comment box and I'll get back to you. Until next time, see you on No Filter.